US Congressman Scott Perry alleged that the United States Agency for International Development, that's USAID, is funding terrorist organizations, including Boko Haram, to the tune of $697 million annually. Now, he claimed that U.S. taxpayer dollars are being used to fund madrasas, terrorist training camps, and also extremist groups in Nigeria.
Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think that the program under Operation Enduring Sentinel, entitled Women's Scholarship Endowment, which receives $60 million annually, or the Young Women Lead, which gets about $5 million annually, is going to women who, by the way, if you read the Inspector General's report, is telling you that the Taliban does not allow women to speak in public. Yet somehow you're believing, and American people are supposed to believe, that this money is going for the betterment of the women in Afghanistan. It is not. You are funding terrorism, and it's coming through USAID. And it's not just Afghanistan, because Pakistan's right next door.
Now, in the same vein, his recent Al Jazeera interview, that's Chief of Defense Staff Christopher Musa, urged the United Nations to investigate the sources of funding for terror groups. Now, Musa also expressed concerns about how international organizations, that's NGOs, operate in conflict zones, particularly in Nigeria's northeast, where Boko Haram and ISWAP are active.
We're ready to go. We're not scared of anybody. And I can tell you, they have their own intent on why they're doing that. I think they just want to demoralize my troops. They want us to look bad, because I just can't understand why anybody will wake up and say that we're killing people when we're actually not doing the same. And guess what? Where the Giwa barracks you were talking about, we have all the humanitarian agencies working there. You have the UN working, local and international organizations are working. Are we saying they're complicit? There is nothing we're doing in the back. So if they don't say it, which means Amnesty International is equal, and Amnesty is equally there, so which means they're equally accusing all these other organizations of being complicit.
So just to be clear, you would be prepared to go to the ICJ in The Hague and answer these accusations?
We're not scared of anything, because we don't have anything of such. We're not. We're just a few good guys trying to do some job, but seems some people are just hell-bent on making sure that we don't succeed. We don't produce the equipment we need. It takes two to tangle. So if they're saying there's corruption, which means those producing the equipment are equally corrupt, because it takes somebody to give and somebody to collect. So which means those ones having these weapons are equally guilty. We don't do such. We have a procurement procedure which is being followed. And to also state that even with our monies at times, we find it difficult getting equipment. And the question is why? One of the reasons why this insurgency has been for this long is because we have been denied access to equipment. Even when we have our monies to get to, it's difficult.
Why have you been denied access to equipment?
Well, I really don't understand. It's a question that we keep on asking, why are we being denied?
So this is a political decision you're suggesting?
Political decision.
Now, the Chief of Defense Staff has actually called for the UN to probe terror funding, and he has talked about his concerns about non-governmental organizations in conflict zones. Now, can these allegations, or allegations like Perry's, still have a negative impact on the perception of foreign aid and also its effectiveness?
Trump's inauguration, obviously Donald Trump has made it very clear prior to becoming president that one of his priorities would be to slash the foreign aid budget. In the lead up to Donald Trump's inauguration, there were several of these unexplained, significantly large payments that were made to this sort of very nondescript organizations. And then after I believe it was on January 28th, Donald Trump made he issued the executive order freezing all payments from USAID. And when I noticed with USAID Nigeria, on January 29 and on January 30, which is the day after and 2 days after the direct instruction of the US president was made, a total of about $466,000 were sent out to recipients by USAID Nigeria. And even worse, the recipients were marked as miscellaneous and undisclosed. So we have close to $500,000. So $466,000 for reference, that's something in the region of 700 million naira, or just under 700 million naira, basically disappearing into a black hole after the US president gave the direct instruction that there had to be no further payments to anybody. 700 million naira is a lot of money in Nigeria. That's a lot of money to just disappear into nothingness. So where is that money going? And this has been a key recurring theme, that a lot of these sort of humanitarian...
Now joining us to unpack this, we have Dennis Amachree. He's a security analyst and former Assistant Director, Department of State Services in the USA. And we also have Mike Ejiofor, is also former Director of Department of State Services based in Abuja. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you.
All right, so let's begin with you, Mr. Amachree. Now, you've heard Congressman Scott Perry's declaration and also accusations during his hearing. How credible do you find these claims that the USAID funds, you know, are reaching extremist groups like Boko Haram?
Thank you very much for this. Congressman Scott Perry came out publicly to say these things. And it is not that it's a secret, or it was a secret that it was in plain sight for everybody. And of course, when Scott Perry comes out to say these things, he was not actually accusing foreign countries. He was accusing his own government. He was accusing the previous government of Joe Biden. Now, USAID has been there for years. 1961 was when it was established, and it has been, you know, an agency that has been on the surface, humanitarian, medical, you know, inoculating children in all kinds of places in the world. But underneath, we have come to discover now, from what Scott Perry said, that yes, there is the outside facade, but underneath there are, you know, serious sponsoring of terrorism, you know, by the United States. Now, you will want to ask, why is that so? You know, when even Boko Haram has been classified as a foreign terrorist group by the US. Why is that so? Because the United States or any of these Western superpowers will always do something to help their national interest. So what we are talking here is two major things: influence and interests. And of course, that's what they are projecting here.
Okay. Now let's hear from Mr. Ejiofor. Now, Mr. Amachree talked about interest and influence, and he said it is no secret. Outside, you see the facade, but within, you know, there's serious terrorist funding. Let's have your thoughts on this accusation on the USAID.
Well, some of these non-governmental organizations all over the world are front organizations. So USAID is not exempt from being front organization. Governments all over the world, especially in the developed world, establish these front agencies for undercover operations. And in expanded network, they are called as illegal network. So if, unlike the diplomats that have legal network, so for the congressman to come out openly to admit that, yes, we agree that there have been areas they forward and they talk about all these things. But I believe very strongly that Nigerian government should take things very seriously. The SSS, the NIA, and the National Assembly will have to investigate the allegations. Because if you look at it critically, why would some of these non-governmental organizations, apart from USAID, go to Borno, for instance, Maiduguri, just like the Chief of Defense Staff said? You see some of these non-governmental organizations renting places for 10 years. Does that mean they don't want the war to end? If you rent a place for 2-3 years, then one can understand that. But when you come and pay for 10 years, that means you are almost a permanent resident there, not wanting the war to end. And not only that, one will ask, what will be their interest? Then the interest will be that at least as long as the war will continue, they will either directly or indirectly be selling arms to Nigeria and Nigerian government.
Okay. All right. Now, let's hear from Mr. Amachree on this. Mr. Amachree, you've heard what Mr. Ejiofor said. He talked about, especially about NGOs renting houses for 10 years as though they do not want, the war to end, especially in conflict areas. Now, based on your extensive experience with Nigerian security, are there any verified intelligence, or on-the-ground evidence, such as documented cases or even communications that supports or refutes claims of aid diversion to extremist groups?
One thing is this, in intelligence operations, you will observe certain things and then you make projections. And those projections have been made to government. They've been made to government. I think the security DSS or even army intelligence and the rest have observed things like this and then make their recommendation, make their observation, make a report. But one thing is this, we have to put it in context whereby, espionage is a game. It's a game played by all countries, including Nigeria, because we have an external intelligence agency, that also play it in foreign countries. So you have the legal residents, the ones that are in the embassy, the diplomats. Most diplomats you see are spies. They are. And then, of course, you have the illegal residents. Illegal residents are people that are coming to work in a foreign country undercover. And in Nigeria, for instance, I can tell you, some people coming as Julius Berger, engineer or a doctor, trying to vaccinate, children that are suffering from polio and everything, But the underlying objective is collection of intelligence which they send to their country. And it's a very dangerous game because if you are involved in illegal collection of intelligence and you are caught in some countries, Saudi Arabia, Russia, they will kill you. They will kill you. That's why it is very, very dangerous. And then, of course, or some countries can jail you for a very, very long time. And these people are all over the place. I am just very, very worried and surprised, of course, that Congressman Scott Perry has to come out and wash the dirty linens of the United States in the public. But of course, we know the politics that is going on in the United States right now. So these things happen.
Okay, let's hear from Mr. Ejiofor. Now, USAID is subject to rigorous audits and also complies with the Leahy laws. Now, you have so many other critics saying that, with this in play, it might not be possible for them, or it might not be the truth that they actually fund terrorists. Now, in light of claims like, those made by Perry, what additional oversight measures would you recommend to prevent any possibility of funds being diverted, in conflict areas?
On our own part, it's going to be difficult. That's on Nigerian part. It's going to be difficult to get their spending, but we can, between the SSS and the NIA, establish the inflow of money into the country and what they are used for. But it's on the part of the American government that appropriates to USAID to now find out what the money meant for, how was it spent. Like you talk of polio vaccination, measles and all those AIDS in health, on others. How much of that was spent? If it's industrial assistance, how many was appropriated? How many of them were executed? In what countries? Don't also forget that the issue was not, Nigeria was not the only country mentioned. You talk of ISIS, you talk of ISWAP, you talk of Boko Haram, you talk of Afghanistan and Pakistan, including Nigeria. So they're all over the world. The American government, the Congress also needs to do its own audit, while the National Assembly will also do its own audit within the country to establish what purpose some of these monies were meant for.
Mr. Ejiofor, what are your thoughts on, what Mr. Amachree said about most diplomats and also expatriates, being spies?
Come again.
I said, what are your thoughts on what Mr. Amachree said about, most diplomats and expatriates being spies?
Well, you see, like when I said when we started, it's a very difficult investigation. Espionage network is a difficult, painstaking investigation that will take time to establish, because if you make mistake, some people's lives might be involved. For the legal network, the diplomats, the only thing you can do if they are caught or arrested or indicted, they are sent back to their country, they won't be prosecuted. But for the illegal network, people who come in as engineers, ordinary workers, artisans and all this, if they are caught, they are subjected to full weight of the law. And most times the punishment is very, very heavy. So I think we should be very careful to ensure that innocent citizens don't suffer, while the people who are involved should not be let off the hook.
Okay. Now, Mr. Amachree, Nigeria's security and intelligence agencies, are tasked with tracking international aid flows as well. Now, with programs sometimes involving sums in excess of $100 million per project, do you think that the systems put in place to monitor these funds are sufficient enough to prevent any diversions?
Diversions could occur when it comes to foreign aids. Like in Nigeria, for instance, most of the foreign aids that are coming into this place, we can't see it. Nigerians can't see it because we don't really know where it's going. Because, okay, there are foreign aids. The concrete ones we can talk about, maybe they want to give scholarships to people and, they go to school and they pay their school fees and stuff like that. Or they want to build a hospital and stuff like that. But the bulk of the money sometimes are frittered away. Just like the Chief of Defense Staff said, you have all these NGOs running around the Northeast. Suddenly, in fact, I was talking to somebody who was telling me that the NGOs that are in Northeast are so many. I don't understand why. The reason is simple. Now that they are just running around there because all these slush funds are available. Who will tell you, oh, we are going to look after IDP people, or we are going to provide sanitary pads to girls in IDP. And what the CDS said, some of them will come without even the escort of the Nigerian military, are going straight into where the terrorists are staying, and they will go there safely and come back. None of their people is even kidnapped or attacked, but they will go and come back. You find out that, okay, they are carrying lorry load of food and stuff like that, and they say, oh, the lorry was attacked by bandits, and they run away. Later they will go back, and then of course the lorry is empty. They've collected what they have to collect. The Boko Haram Commission even came up with something, when they went to survey or do the report there. The locals were telling them that, look, there are some helicopters that come in the night, they drop, guns and stuff like that. And according to Professor Bolaji Akemi, who was a member of that commission, he said that the people told them that they are white people, and he thought that they were just French people, because French has been our problem here. But with the revolution of Scott Perry, you find out that yes, the Americans' hands have been in there for a very long time. So we have to do something about it. Not much that we can do, but we have to look inwards and see how we can stop some of these gaps.
Okay, let's hear from you, Mr. Ejiofor. Mr. Amachree talked about, the French being our problem for a while now. He also talked about some vulnerabilities like, helicopters appearing at night to drop guns, too many NGOs, and also slush funds, making it easy for some of these diversions. Let's have your take on this.
Well, Nigeria is surrounded by Francophone countries. And what do you expect? Apart from recently now that some of these countries are pulled out of ECOWAS, it becomes a more complex problem. But I can tell you that, like some of the allegations being made, that you see helicopters dropping this thing, I don't buy into the idea, because it has not been confirmed. The government has not even come out. You see some of them shots or scenes from some videos that maybe some of these acts that you see in films, some of these shots in films, the people are dropping. Where's our efforts if all these people are coming to Nigeria to drop, allegedly drop what they are saying they are dropping, and they fly away? From what country are they coming? So I don't believe that story. But until it's subjected to investigation and confirmation, it remains in the realm of speculation. But I admit that Nigeria being surrounded by Francophone countries is a problem. But if you go to the northwest, north central, you hardly can differentiate who is a Nigerian or who is a Nigerian. And they all intermarry, they live freely together, and it becomes a problem to man our borders and make them effective.
But Mr. Ejiofor, what about local partners? Is there a possibility that some local partners are complicit in this? Because we know that, local partners are actually critical in ensuring that aid reaches, those in need. And even, former Ambassador Dele Cole, remarked that if they know that this is funding terrorism, why can't they complain to the government? So can you please speak to us on this?
Yeah, it again comes to intelligence operations. When you talk of espionage network, we have what is called bridgehead. The bridgehead, those are the locals that conspire or work with the foreigners. So there's no successful illegal or legal network that doesn't have insiders who work with them. So that's admittedly a problem not only to Nigeria but all over the world, because there are insiders who normally work people who come in outside. Like in our local palace, you say it's the rat that is in the house that goes outside to tell the one outside that there's fish in the house. The one outside cannot just come and notice that there's fish in the house without the rat in the house coming to show the one outside of the position of the fish.
All right, let's hear, same question from you, Mr. Amachree. Mr. Ejiofor said locals, conspire and work together with some of these foreigners. So how are they complicit? Do you think that they are complicit? And also, how effective are these local agencies in practice?
Well, we have to realize that, like Mike said, you cannot operate without local people. You cannot go into a strange house and then find your way around. Somebody from the inside will show you, the rooms, different rooms and stuff like that. So yes, there are people inside that are very, very complicit. And then of course, these are agents that are recruited, and from what we are hearing right now, agents have been in government. Jonathan himself said it, President Jonathan said it, that there are people in his government who are Boko Haram sympathizers. We have that. We also have in the military, people who are, sympathizing with Boko Haram or doing all kinds of things. So yes, there are sympathizers, but now it becomes a job for the security agencies to really find out. It is a common practice. It's a common practice whereby even in the United States, you have Russia trying to recruit people, and even there are some people that have been recruited that even went up to the level of second in command of the CIA. The Americans also do that with Russians. Sometimes they recruit presidents. Presidents are recruited. Yeah. You remember Gorbachev? Gorbachev is now in the United States, a lecturer at Stanford University in California. And that was the man that the Americans used to break down the Soviet USSR, balkanize the whole country, and then of course, he suddenly ran away, and then of course, being an agent, they accepted him here. So that is the kind of game that we are into. And of course, I am very, very happy that our security agencies, especially the GSS, they are very, very much versed in this game. They know NIA, that's their game. So we'll keep on playing. The only thing is that let's not relax until, we have a short end of the stick, because there's also reciprocity.
Absolutely. All right, so gentlemen, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll definitely continue this very interesting conversation. Do stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us on the conversation. Well, if you're just joining us, we are still discussing US Congressman Scott Perry's allegations that the USAID is funding terrorist organizations, and we still have with us Dennis Amachree and Mike Ejiofor. Thank you for staying with us, gentlemen. Now, let me come to you, Mr. Ejiofor. High-profile figures like, President Donald Trump and Elon Musk have actually criticized the USAID. And I remember Trump once tweeting claims that the USAID funds are paying for terrorism as well. Now, to what extent do you think that political agendas are shaping or even exaggerating these allegations?
Of course, there's politics in all this. Whether it is true or not, each successive government will want to discredit the former government. So you cannot rule out politics here. And you know that Trump, although I'm not a fan of Trump, I don't know what word to use now. He likes trouble and fishing in troubled waters. So until the matter is investigated, I know that there's some element of politics in this. But until it's investigated and the truth is revealed, let's keep our fingers crossed.
All right, Mr. Amachree, same question over to you. How are political agendas shaping or exaggerating these allegations?
Oh, well, I hope they will really carry out an investigation because the way I see it, right now there are a lot of protests going on in the United States, in different states, across the United States. People are protesting against Elon Musk because they feel that he's not an elected guy and he came in there. In fact, there is a picture that is really making waves right now, where he went into the Oval Office, you know, standing behind the resolute desk of the president with his son, you know, and in fact, some journalist was counting how many words that was spoken there. They said that Elon Musk spoke more was about 3,000 words, more than President Trump, you know. So a lot of people are very worried. A lot of people are very worried. To which end? That's the question. To which end? Because a lot of interests are there. The USAID, of course, even the United States, they know that that's the base of the CIA. You know, the CIA operates through the USAID. And for somebody to now come and expose it, in fact, they are busy also trying to fire a lot of, or put some FBI people under investigation, all because of political expediency, you know. So let us see how it turns out, because there will be a lot of investigation, a lot of people are kicking against it. But for us as Nigerians, we also have to seriously look within, behind, look for our own national interest, because it is a matter of, like I said earlier, influence and interest. A lot of them want to influence Africa, you know. Britain has done it, Europeans have done it, America was doing it, France. Now with AES countries kicking out France, you know, and of course a lot of them losing influence, China is moving in, you know. So it's a big international situation where we don't know where it's heading, but the best way of defense is to take care of yourself, take care of your house, and then
So you're saying Nigeria should solely be responsible for, you know, the investigation, because here we are trying to investigate an international organization, and then the Chief of Defense Staff is calling for the UN, which is an international organization, to probe as well. So are you saying that you do not believe that a joint investigation, you know, involving both Nigerian authorities and also international agencies is warranted at the moment?
We are not going to investigate the USAID. Nigeria can't do that. Even the United States will not, United Nations will not do that, because they know. They all know. In fact, the United Nations, you know, the United States itself has been trying to defund the United Nations, because most of the money being used in the United Nations is from the United States. The headquarters of the United States is in Manhattan, right there, you know. So they have a lot of influence about what happens in the United Nations. So I don't think anybody is going to investigate USAID. What they've done is to just like strip it naked in public. And then of course, this is something that the US, like I said earlier, have started since 1961, you know, and from that time till now, all government agencies have been using it, including Trump. Trump was president for 4 years before he was overtaken by Biden. He was using the USAID, was under him at that time, you know, so he was the one. All American presidents, all American presidents, But where we are concerned is the one for Boko Haram right now, which we are looking at. But it will continue. Other governments will come and they will continue. We just have to be very, very careful when it comes to espionage. That's my own take on it.
Okay, now Mr. Ejiofor, Mr. Amachree has actually accused Trump himself because, he was once president as well. Do you believe that a joint investigation involving Nigerian authorities and international agencies is what we need to be able to examine these allegations thoroughly at the moment?
Well, the US Congress, on its own part, can carry out the investigation because if it's true, it's an indictment on the American government. And on our part as Nigerians, I see the National Assembly coming in, or the National Assembly to come in concert with the State Security Service and the NIA, which is also the external arm of intelligence gathering in our country, to establish the truth or otherwise, the veracity or otherwise of these allegations. Then at the end of the day, Nigeria can make a representation to US government, or US government will come out with its own position to know whether it is true or not the allegation the congressman is making.
Okay, Mr. Ejiofor, so what impact do you think that, such claims have on Nigeria's national security strategy, particularly in regions that are hardest hit by Boko Haram insurgency?
Well, American government is undermining Nigeria. It could lead to diplomatic rupture. Diplomatic rupture on our own part, and we'll be having a cordial relationship with the United States government. But if it's it's established that the American government is undermining Nigeria by sponsoring terrorism, they will need to review our relationship with them.
Okay, let's hear same from Mr. Amachree.
Well, yeah, I think I agree with Mike. If they are, they are seen, the United States is seen as a friendly country to Nigeria. But if we find out that actually they've been carrying out this undercover thing with Boko Haram and, putting our country at risk, then I think we have to look at it again. But you see, we are in a very tight situation whereby are we an equal partner? That's another thing with the United States. Are we equal partners? Or they are a senior partner or a junior? So with these are intricacies that have to, define which kind of relationship we have with them. But right now, a lot of things are happening in the African subcontinent, where there are, the United States, France is losing influence. And then, of course, Russia and China are gaining influence. And that now becomes a positive thing for Nigeria, where we will decide whether we are going to stay with our old friends or we are going to now align with BRICS.
All right, well, just before we go ahead, I'm told that Mr. Ejiofor has other engagements and we'll have to let him go. Thank you so much, Mr. Ejiofor, for joining us and also speaking to us on this.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. All right, so now let's continue with you, Mr. Amachree, even though we're about to, we're winding down on the show. When political figures use charged language, for instance, repeating phrases like, "you're funding terrorism," how does such information affect public trust in both local governments and also international donors? And what do you think can be done to restore, that trust using hard figures and also transparent data? Because we know that with this coming out, it will be difficult for, the people, especially even those who are being looked after by the USAID to be trusted?
Well, like I said earlier, the Boko Haram has been classified as a foreign terrorist group. So FTOs are, one of the groups that the United States look for to eliminate, in fact, if they can. But when we see a situation where this same FTO is one that is being used by the United States, I think there's going to be new. How do I put it now? There has to be a paradigm shift on it, so that we know where we are now. Because enemies today might be friends tomorrow, and we don't know. So now that it is coming out, we hope that the United States will be on the part of Nigeria to make sure that, yes, this funding stops, and if it stops, then we can dry out Boko Haram, because this Boko Haram fight has gone on for too long.
Okay. Now, considering Nigeria's reliance on billions in international aid, and severe implications of mismanagement and corruption, what message would you like to convey to Nigerian citizens and also the global community about the integrity of Nigeria's security and aid oversight systems?
It is simple that I am happy that these revelations are coming out anyway. I'm very, very happy that they are coming out, because with this now we know people that have been under that cover, and then of course frittering away money, international aid funds. We want aid, yes, but sometimes I strongly believe that we should start looking inwards and then take care of ourselves. We cannot be, going cap in hand to foreign countries and then they'll give you something. These things are not for free. They are not for free. Any country that is giving aid to you have their own interest that they are going to protect. So if we don't want this kind of interference, we should start looking inward, and then of course make sure that we handle it ourselves. These aids are not something that we cannot stay without. Some of our monies that have been stolen by politicians and which are being returned back, what are we doing with them? How are we accounting for them? How are we accounting for them? Because we cannot say, we had $300 million Abacha loot came in and this and that, and then nobody knows anything about it again. These aids they are sending to us, how many? $11 million per year or something like that. We should start, looking inwards, seeing how we can do it ourselves. Stop the slush, because what is happening is that people see it as extra money, and everybody is stealing it and pocketing it because they don't see that it's not budgeted. It's not budgeted, so people just, see it as extra pocket money. And then we should start looking at that now.
Any final thoughts that you may actually, have?
I didn't hear the full question.
Any final thoughts?
Oh, well, yes, like I said earlier, we've had this USAID revelation, which is coming at the very right time. We have a government that our military has been working seriously, our security agencies have been working seriously to take care of one of the biggest threats that we've faced in decades. So I think we should put our heads together. The military should not relent. The DSS, everybody should, put their hands on deck and make sure that now that we are identifying the threats and the problem, we can go about, solving the problem for once and for all.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Dennis Amachree, security analyst and former assistant director, Department of State Services, DSS, all the way from the U.S. And not forgetting that we also had Mike Ejiofor, also former director of the DSS in Abuja. We appreciate you for your time, Mr. Amachree.
Thank you for having me.